Hale, thanks so much for being here to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the Broadmoor Invitation. Hard to believe 100 years, but we have a lot of history together. You have a lot of history with the Broadmoor. Sorry you couldn't be here live. You're doing a charity event up in Alaska, which I commend you for, but thanks for being here.
Russ, I just wish the schedule worked out better, but anytime I can come to the Broadmoor is a bonus, but 100 years just doesn't seem possible. In our lifetime, it hasn't been 100 years, obviously, but just to think that the people that have come here through all the years and enjoyed at the bottom of Pikes Peak and enjoyed all the things that the Broadmoor has offered, and the exquisite food and the rooms. Everything about the Broadmoor is just in first class, and so anytime we can come back, we're here.
Thank you. Your career has been tremendous. 20 PGA Tour victories, 45 Champion Tour victories, 3 U.S. Opens, 2 Senior Opens, PGA Seniors. It goes on, and we certainly commend you on that. It's a tremendous Hall of Fame career. But I really wanted to focus today on your relationship with the Broadmoor. And a lot of people don't realize it involves the NCAA Championship, the Broadmoor Invitation, and Senior Opens. So let's start back in 1964 when you played in the NCAA Championship. I remember about 12 years ago, you said it was some of the tough conditions you've ever played in.
Well, as you know, in 1964, the West Course had just opened, and that in and of itself made it kind of a tough golf course. But late May, early June weather that can kind of sometimes haunt Colorado, we had some of that weather. It was kind of nasty, chilly. I wasn't ever a good cold weather player, but it was the kind of week that Hale Irwin didn't do very well, particularly in those days. But it was a hard golf course.
It's hard in good conditions, and I've heard it was really bad. But 3 years later, in 1967, you won the NCAA championship in Pennsylvania, and you turned pro soon after that. What do you recall about those years?
Oh boy. Well, in those years, the NCAA was one of the few tournaments that I could play in. I didn't have a real big amateur playing schedule. I stayed here in Colorado, and I worked in the summer primarily. I got to play some tournaments locally, but I didn't get to go outside the state much. So playing in the NCAA, the team didn't get to go, but I got to go as an individual, having won the Big Eight. So this is my first foray all by myself, all the way back. Flew into Newark, New Jersey, rented a car. I just turned 21 and drove to Fred Waring's Shawnee on the Delaware. And the guys against whom I was playing, I had entertained the thought about turning pro, but back in those days, you couldn't say you were going to turn pro because that made you a pro. Intent turned you into a professional. Right. So you had to kind of hush-hush what you were talking about. But the guys against whom I was playing in college and kind of the amateur circles, those are the people I had to beat on a national scale. So walking away from there with a victory really kind of turned the wheels in my mind, saying, hey, I can compete against my peer group, and I can win against them. Now the next step is the unknown.
Yeah. Let's move many years later. You were kind enough to serve as our honorary chairman for the 2008 U.S. Senior Open. That's when you and I became really good friends, and we'll talk about some of those stories. But I remember playing some practice rounds here with you in 2008, and you did very well, and then played again in 2018. You had 2 victories in the U.S. Senior Open. Tell us about that a little bit.
Well, the first one was out in Riviera in 1998, and I didn't play a particularly good first round. In fact, it was terrible. I think it was 77. Now, I am not only so far removed from winning the tournament, I am almost assuredly going to miss the cut. Right. And the press wanted to talk to me about the round, and there was nothing about that round I wanted to talk about. Not anything. So, thank you, but no thank you. I'm not going to talk about, oh, you need to come into the press room. No, I don't. I don't need to remind myself of what a terrible day it was. So I just tried to forget it. And I came out the next day. I played much better. I did make the cut, and I put 2 really good rounds together on the weekend and birdied the last hole at Riviera to beat Vicente Fernandez by a shot. So very proud of the way I came back on a particularly difficult golf course. And then 2 years later at Saucon Valley, going back to Pennsylvania one more time, I got it together again and had a good solid week.
Congratulations, that's awesome. You and I have a good funny story about 2008 here. I'll let you give your version, then I'll follow up with my version.
Well, as you so reverently brought it up, I came in for a press day. And I can't remember who the defending champion was that couldn't make it in. Kenny couldn't make it in.
Yep.
So you asked me to come up, and I'm fine. I'd be happy to come back to the state of Colorado, where I've enjoyed so many years. And we had our press conference, and we had a little, I think you put a little mat or something up on the balcony of the clubhouse there. Right. And we went down to the 18th hole.
Right.
And as I remember, I hit a pretty good shot down there, about 6 feet from the hole or so. But we talked about the Will Rogers Shrine. And I made mention of the fact that it's probably going to get somebody during the tournament. I hope they can turn it off. Because what happens is those people that know about the shrine, but every 15 minutes it puts out its bong, and it echoes all up and down the front range. Well, anyway, it got me on the first tee. I mean, I'm back here, and just as I'm ready to start down, Will makes his presence known, bong, and I try to stop. But I can't quite make it to stop. And I hit it right on the heel of the club, and it just squirts over here about 30 feet against a tree, where there's a big clock on it. Well, I think I went into shutdown mode, into shock, but the rules guys came out and they said, well, did you intend to hit it? Well, no, I didn't intend to hit it. Well, that's not a stroke. But I said, there's something, I don't know. I made contact. It's got to be. So the decision book came out, and the rule book may be like this. Decision book's like this. So sure enough, thumbing through it, and here's a decision that if you do indeed hit it, it's a stroke. So now I'm laying over here 30 feet off the tee against a tree. The good part was, because there's a clock on that, made it immovable obstruction. So I got to drop away from the tree. I hacked it out into the fairway. So now I'm just into the fairway on number one. I hit a hybrid up onto the green and made about a 25-foot putt that broke about 6 feet for a par. And I'm staring at that Will Rogers Shrine the whole time. I'm going to take this thing down. I'm going to take it down. And I birdied the second hole and the third hole.
You did.
And then you can pick it up from there.
Well, yeah, and let me go back a little bit. When you mentioned, and you and I were actually playing one day, and it started on the first hole, and you said, you're going to turn that off for the championship, aren't you? And being here every single day, I don't even hear it anymore. As a matter of fact, it just went off. I said, gosh, Hale, I don't know. That thing, to my knowledge, has never been turned off in history. So I went to the powers to be and said, what's our options? Do we turn it off, leave it on? You could actually turn it down to 50% volume, which I didn't know, and they did for the championship. The problem is, when you were teeing off, the wind was due out of the west about 5 miles an hour, calm as could be, and it was as loud as you could get it. So it didn't work out so well for me. When you teed off and that happened, I happened to be standing by the first tee, and you gave me a pretty not very nice look. So when you, like you said, you hit it down the fairway, hit it on the green, made I think about a 30-footer. It was one of the loudest roars I'd heard all week, just for a par.
That came from me, by the way.
Yeah, and a lot of spectators. Like you said, birdie 2 and 3. I said, well, he can't be angry anymore because he's 2 under. So I meet you on 4T and said, Hale, once again, I'm sorry. And I normally don't talk to players during the round. You said, you SOB, I'm 2 under, but if it weren't for you, I'd be 3 under. So,
no, I don't remember that part,
I do remember very well, and you were exactly right.
You're selective hearing.
You went on to, I think, shoot 71 that day, and obviously made the cut and played very well, but you can't plan for everything, as you know, and that was just one of the great stories, and that still comes up. That was in 2008, and I hear that a lot.
I put that into my own mind. Of all the years and all the times I've played here, why would that get in my mind at the time?
Let me make another point there. When we had the USGA rules meeting, and not tattletelling, it was made very clear to the starters for each day, do not tee someone off on the dead hour or 30 minutes after, because that's going to go off. So wait 12 p.m. and 20 seconds and you're good. Well, that didn't quite happen with you, unfortunately.
Not quite, but I've never felt so helpless. Yeah. We've seen Tiger Woods stop, but Hale Irwin couldn't stop. He got, and it came to a screeching tap, and it just squirted over there, and it was playing with Tom Watson and whomever else it was, and
I think Tom Kite.
whatever. And I remember dejectedly walking to the second, and I had the honor on the first hole. Walking to number 2, sat on the bench thinking, oh, how can you do this? And Tom Watson says, you have the honor. And I looked at him quizzically, and he says, you made a par. Oh, yeah, I guess that's
great par. Greatest par ever. Being the honorary chairman, which was, once again, a great thing for you to do, there's some press conferences, there's some marketing and media type things, which takes your time. Did you feel any added pressure in '08 having that role and being from Colorado, from CU, a friend of the Broadmoor? Did you feel any extra need to play better?
I've always felt the want to play better is there. I don't know if there's a need, but the want is to play better. But oftentimes at the professional level, when you're playing in and out of different tournaments, different cities, and you have the routine. Okay, I leave home, I go to the airport, I fly to the next, I go to the hotel, I go to the golf course, I go to the hotel, I go to the golf course, I get back on the airplane, I fly. So that's a routine. Now, when you're playing at home, wherever home is, for me, it was, I'm staying at home. Oh, that's an unusual thing to do. I'm not going to the airport. That's another unusual thing. Yeah. So things are different. You go to the golf course, you see friends, people that you see friends in other cities, but not maybe family, not friends that have been dear friends for a long time. So things are different. And when it's different, sometimes that kind of takes you out of your routine. And for me, that was always difficult because I wanted to spend time with my friends, time with my family. Or I could see him walking over there, I'm thinking, gosh, I haven't seen him in such a long time. And you walk over, how you doing? And that's not your normal routine. So I found it difficult, wherever home was at the time, to play at home. So playing here was a special place to play, but it was a difficult place to play.
I remember a lot walking down the fairways with you during the championship, and you'd hear "Go Buffs," "Go Buffs," and it's a small fraternity. My children went to see you, and certainly you did. So, but I thought it was great. You came back in 2018, 10 years later. So obviously you're 10 years older. But you remember a big difference in the two championships.
Yeah, I was a lot older.
You missed the cut.
And I didn't play well. A lot of, at least in my career, I'll speak to my career only, is there comes a time when most of your career is behind you, and the things that you have, that you want to do that may not be golf related, you haven't done them. And that's just kind of that first step to where the game starts down. And it's not necessarily that you can't play golf anymore, and maybe you're not as long as you used to be, but the focus is not there. And that's where I found my game was always very good and staying focused and the mentally getting into it. That's where my game, I thought, excelled. It wasn't I hit the ball that much farther, it's just I hit a lot of fairways, I hit a lot of greens, because that's the way my game was steady. But as I got older, I thought, okay, steadiness is good, but we're thinking about this trip to Alaska, or we're going to go over and see the kids up in Denver, or we're going to do this trip. We're going to go to Wimbledon. The things that you haven't done that you want to do before you can't do them, that wasn't part of my planning in the past. And it became that. And it just takes that edge off, just enough edge to where you hear the herd of the other players go right on by you.
One thing I recall in '08 and '18, you had a lot of your family here. And I've had a lot of dinners after championship rounds just because we like to hang out and so forth. And I remember, no matter what you shot, if it was 66 or 76 after the round when your family was here, you shut it off. And you sat down and laughed and giggled and had the grandkids on your lap. And that's one thing that stood out, because most people would think if you have a poor round, your day's ruined till you tee it up the next day, and you weren't that way. Your family came way before what you shot.
Well, they did, Russ, but I think for me, I tried to make it a practice through time. Whatever I shot, whatever I did, I left it there. I didn't want to bring that with me. I didn't want to go into the locker room and talk about it. I didn't want to go to the restaurant and talk about it. It may come up in casual conversation, but I didn't need to sit down and, Russ, you know what I did at the first hole of the day or second hole? I didn't want to get it, nor did I want to hear it. I just felt like, for me, it was best to step away from that and let my mind go. Let all that go so I can restart the engine the next day. It's too hard to keep that engine running overnight. And for me, I think I found a good way in which to kind of take the day, package it, set it down. Okay, that's the past. It's the proverbial water over the dam. I can't retrieve it. It's done. Look to the next day. So I think through my career, I've tried to look to the future, kind of look forward to the next opportunity, rather than get hung up on what was. Let's talk about what can happen.
Yeah. Was that the last Senior Open you played in, 2018?
I think it was, yeah.
Do you,
maybe played in 19, but
what do you miss about it? I know, once again, we're older, we don't play as well.
well, I think what I miss more than anything else is the competitive arena, particularly at that level we're talking about, is being in the mix.
Yeah.
Is being part, not just part of the bigger cast, but really having the game that can compete to win. And that's the, of all the great champions, one of the things I've taken away when I've been around Jack Nicklaus, too, in my way of thinking, he's probably the greatest of all, was his willingness to prepare to win those major championships and what it took. I wasn't built like Jack, I didn't play like Jack, but I could maybe try to do something like what he was doing without being the same, because we're different individuals. Right. But I found early in my career on the professional tour, my best success seemed to come when I set the bar high and worked real hard to get there. If I set it too low and I got success too easily, then that really wasn't success. It wasn't pushing me to where I needed to get to, because I just didn't want to be a player. I wanted to be better than that. And I think oftentimes in today's world, oh, you've had 3 top 10s this year. What's that mean? What'd you win? Oh, I didn't win anything, but it sure won a lot of money. Well, okay, you're financially successful, but are you a winner? And I wanted to be a winner.
Yeah, right, exactly. Broadmoor Invitation, as we said, 100th anniversary. It's very special. You won the invitation in 1967, beat Bob Murphy 2-1. Tell us a little bit about that match.
It's right here, right here.
Right here.
Hale Irwin, right there, 1967. Well, Bob was one of the better players, amateur players in the country. He came out of South Florida and was always in the mix, always a good player, and turned pro later on and had success as a professional. And here I was just up the street in Boulder. I really didn't get to compete against those guys, you know, the Marty Fleckmans and Bob Dixon, who's also on this trophy. The really good amateur players, they came out here to the Broadmoor, and that made it a special tournament, at least for me, because I couldn't go to the North-South. I couldn't go to the Porter Cup. I couldn't go to some of these other, I never could play in the U.S. Amateur because it was during the football season. So it just wasn't available to me to play, but I could play here in my home state against some of the very best players. There wasn't an amateur tour like there is now. These kids can now play all the time and really hone their games, but it was an infrequent tournament schedule, if you wish, back then. But my tournament schedule was pretty much here in the state of Colorado.
Yeah.
But playing against Bob, and I think I played against Marty earlier in the week, I had a really good week. I played well. Bob and I had a good match, and I prevailed in the end. And for me, it was again one of those indicators that, hey, I can play against some of the best players in the world. Now, they come out here, and Marty was from Houston, and Bob was from Florida, pretty flat. When you're playing in these mountains, I had an advantage. Yeah. I may have been not as skilled, but I had the feel of the mountains. You know, you can have a slope that looks like it's this way, but that mountain's big and it makes it slope that way. So the greens here are really hard to read, but I could read the greens, and that was the big difference.
In a championship here, which would you rank number 1? Hitting fairways or putting these greens?
Well, I think it'd have to be putting the greens if I had to make that choice. But I've always felt like if you don't hit the fairways, then that second shot's going to be a little more tasking, which will make the putt more difficult. I say a little bit more tasking in that if you're playing from the wrong side of the fairway, you're playing from the rough and you're hitting the flyers into these greens, and they're hard to putt anyway. You really need to put the ball in the fairway to hit the irons in an area where you can putt them. But if you didn't know the greens, what looked like a relatively simple putt could become a 3-putt real quickly.
Yeah.
And that's why I think here it's more important to be able to putt these greens.
Your son Steve has won 2 Broadmoor invitations. Good friend of mine also, very, very good player. That's pretty special to have your son win something you won back in 1967.
Oh, absolutely. And people often ask me what tournament is your favorite that you've ever won. I'd have to say the father-son tournament that I played professionally and with Steve. But I'm very proud that Steve also has made his mark down here at the Broadmoor, winning twice. So he's one up to me there. But I think he's been a really good player for a long time here in the state of Colorado. I'm very proud of him.
And he would be here this week, but he is the captain of the mid-amateur team. Is that correct?
The U.S. mid-am team,
U.S.
right.
mid-amateur team, which is a great honor. And Steve called me and says, hey, if it weren't for that, I'd be with you this week.
He's a playing captain, yeah.
You go play and do your thing, because that's a great honor. And he's, like you said, a wonderful player. The demographics of this tournament have changed a little bit over time. When you played, it was a lot of younger college guys that came in, and now our demographics are more gentlemen in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and some 80s. They really have jobs for a living. These aren't, some have been great players for a long time, but it's just a little bit different. And we've really put emphasis on the spouses and guests enjoying the week as much as the husband does. Because we figured if the lady's having a great time, she's going to bring him back for the following year. And as you said, the Broadmoor has so much to offer. The ladies know throughout the day we have a lot of activities for them, and when the guys finish, they finish, and then they can dine or whatever they want to do. What's your thoughts on that? Because that's a lot different than a lot of championship tournaments.
Well, it is, but I think that's what separates the Broadmoor Invitational from some of the others. It is very inclusive for families, for the wives that may not be shunned at other tournaments, but they don't have that much to do. Here they have plenty to do. They're included. The way in which you go about the flighting of the players and the distances they play, and I think brings a whole different mix to a tournament that does have a great deal of attractiveness to it. Not just the facility, which is that alone sells a lot of, but just the tournament itself. And coupled with everything else, it makes for a magnificent event. And I kind of wish we had had that back then, although I don't know what I'd have done any differently, but it would have been fun to, had I been older and had I had my family, that would have been a great thing to do, is play in the Broadmoor Invitational.
One thing we hear a lot, they're watching the Senior Open on TV, and then I get to play that same golf course in a competitive tournament. No, the rough's not quite as high, and the fairways may not be quite as narrow, but the greens are about the same speed, the firmness is the same. They're playing very, very tough conditions, and when they come out to the range to warm up, we put their name on the range plaque, and it makes them feel special. And I agree with you. When I grew up, to have that opportunity would be really special. To be, you're not a tour player, but to feel like you're a tour player.
Well, you're in the game, Russ. You've been successful here at the Broadmoor for a long, long time, and you know the game itself has changed. We have different equipment now. It's whether it's the chicken or the egg, whether it's the equipment or the player, one has influenced the other big time. And I think a lot of these tournaments now really go to the younger players that can hit at miles. Here at this altitude, they can hit miles plus.
Yes.
So I think by doing what you've done makes it more attractive for the older players. It's made it a more seasoned event. At 100 years old, this is a seasoned place, but it's also a seasoned event, which I think is very special to those people that come and play. I don't know how you could be more relaxed at a golf tournament than you are here at the Broadmoor. If you're going to chill out and play in a tournament at a competitive level, this has got to be the best in the world.
Yeah, big belly full of food, right?
Well, of course, that's part of what's, you know, they're big mountains, you know.
That's right. Well, Hale, you're a great ambassador to the game. You're a great ambassador to the Broadmoor and a good friend. Thank you for sharing this time with us.
It's been my pleasure, and for all of you out there that are wanting to play in the Broadmoor Invitational, don't pass it up. It'll be something you'll never forget.